Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
The cryptid huntress, Jessica Jones. Yes, this must mean, once again, it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet, I have been sleeping for so long and feel like dust. I must replenish lost nutrients. Much better. Sometimes, when you sleep for years on end, well, you become a little dehydrated. Without further ado, it is time for Jessica Jones and myself to take a walk into the darkness.
Welcome back, my creatures. Yes, it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy. And guess what? My co-host tonight is Miss Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress, also from Spaced Out Radio. We are going to figure out what the heck is going on with the Dogman. How are you doing tonight, Jessica?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking time out of your massively busy schedule to pop by and hang out with us tonight.
Oh man, anytime. I love talking about Dogman.
I do appreciate that because it is definitely a reoccurring event globally and also within our country. People definitely need to be aware and just be safe with what's going on out there for sure. How you been doing in general?
I've been good. I've been really busy. I've actually been doing a lot of research on Dogman, as a matter of fact, and having people on my shows who've had encounters with Dogman.
Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit? That sounds really cool.
Yeah, well, last night I had a show on where I had done some remote viewing on a target that involved the Dogman at Fort Pierce, Florida, which was really cool. That's actually some really interesting film out of Florida of a guy named Blue. This was from about 4 years ago, who was doing a live stream on Facebook and he had taken a picture actually of something that looked like a dog man in his backyard. He was talking about it. He was freaking out about it, telling everybody on Facebook Live about this werewolf thing that he had seen. And he said, well, I'm just not going to tell you about it. I'm going to show you. Let me just open up my back door and maybe it'll be out there. And went to go open up the door. And sure enough, something that looked like a dog man streaked through his backyard. And it was on Facebook Live, of all things. So that's the only time I've ever heard of any kind of story like that, where something happened and there's video evidence of it happening in real time on Facebook Live. So we discussed that last night. That's a really cool story, actually. I also had a gentleman on my show who's a friend of mine last week. His name is Mark Maychek, and he lives up near the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. And he came on the show and talked about one of his Dogman encounters where the Dogman was wearing face paint when he encountered it. So he thought he was looking at a deer, But actually, when it came into focus and he could figure out what he was looking at, it was an actual dog, like it looked like a coyote, bipedal on two legs. And it looked like it had taken white paint and smeared it down each side of its face and then down its throat to look like a deer. So that was really cool too. I mean, we're getting all sorts of really interesting stories with Dogman lately.
That is super cool, but also at the same time, for any witness that experiences it, probably not super cool. When it comes to the whole Florida one, did you get a chance to see any of that footage yourself by any chance?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You can find it online, actually. The gentleman who recorded that live on Facebook, I think his name is Shy Unique. I think was his name on Facebook, but everybody calls him Blue. And there are multiple interviews on YouTube. And if you just Google it, Google or DuckDuckGo it, put it in a search engine, Fort Pierce, Florida Dogman, and it'll come up. Some say it's some of the best evidence of Dogman. I mean, you can clearly see something running on two legs in the shadows along the tree line behind his house. And like I said, it's in real time, and it scares the crap out of him. And he slams the door to his house, and he goes back, and he's pretty shaken up about it. You can tell on the film. So I've seen it. It's all over. You can even go to my website, and I've got links to it there. So yeah, pretty cool. It's all over the internet though.
That's very intriguing. Thank you for sharing that. I will definitely have to make sure to check that out. That sounds pretty nightmare fuel. When it comes to Dogman in general, what are your thoughts?
Man, there's such a wide variety of the different types of dogmen and the different types of encounters that people have. But I've taken a lot of reports, and I've had a lot of people on all my shows over on the Cryptid Hunters channel. Most of the encounters that I have been told about, because I have not had my own personal encounter, even though I am a cryptid field researcher, my encounters have mostly centered around Bigfoot and ETs, extraterrestrials, aliens. I have not come across a dogman yet that I know of. But the majority of the reports are pretty much pointing in the direction of them not being that violent against humans. I mean, yeah, we have stories of them, mauling people to death and having all sorts of, it has a negative connotation. You hear dogman, you think of something that's super just, ripping people apart and they're out for blood. I don't know. The majority of the stories that I hear about it and the encounters, they're not like that. Now, we also have the unidentified or unspecified animal attacks. Those are plentiful. There's a plethora of those. And I do this really cool thing. It's called remote viewing. And it's something that I've been trained in for many, many years, something that our military uses. Militaries from all over the world use it for psychic spying. And so I'm given these blind targets sometimes of some of these unspecified animal attacks. And people, it's the ones where people think, or they assume that maybe a dog man attacked a person, or they were mauled by a dog man. And so I'm able to go in there and kind of get a feel as to, well, was it a dog man? And in a lot of these cases, the majority of them, I'm going to say they're either a big cat or something other. With a couple of them, yeah, I think that it could have been a dog man. So, I think going into the whole dogman phenomenon, I just assumed that they were all violent and out for blood, but I don't think that's really the case.
That's very interesting, everything you just stated for sure. Agree. It's no different than a grizzly bear or tigers. They will predate on people, but they don't necessarily 100% always go out of their way to do that unless they're sickly or wounded. And I would have an assumption with Sasquatch and Dogman would do the same. They would feed when presented, but also if they are as intellectual as people report, they would be aware that you can't always continuously pluck off a plethora of humans without getting others to pay attention. But then when you look at the map systems where we have kind of sandwiched them together, where you have the known limestone cave systems, and then you have the areas where people have gone missing in the mountain regions, and then you have the North American Dogman Project pings. And when you put them all together, they all line up with all the cave systems. And that's a ton of those are in the national parks too, and this is where all the people are going missing. I have a theory on that as well, where I do believe, I've spoken about it before, feral people to an extent have something involved in that, but there are documented cases of basically hit squads going in from the to take care of and eradicate that population. For the most part, I would assume if there are still feral people, it's not as if we're talking about the hills have eyes or wrong turn. There might be a few, yet they're also not going to be fully jacked up and super healthy. We're talking about feral people that haven't had time to evolve to hunt and be totally successful at it. In movies, sure, all of a sudden these people that are out there for a year can all of a sudden climb trees like crazy and all that. I feel, yeah, some of the feral people in the past, and I do personally believe Sasquatch and Dogman have something to do with that, but I also think some of these people are having just common misfortunes, yet I do believe some are being attacked by animals, known species, and I also believe the serial theory because I've seen some documentaries about that where deranged individuals do go to these super remote places as you and I might go to just get away from everything. So if you have no cell phone service in places and that's what you want to do, unfortunately, someone that is twisted in the mind will go there as well. And Hulu just recently put out a series about an elderly gentleman that you really wouldn't have thought could have overpowered all these people, but he would find women and other people that were isolated in the middle of these forests and approach them with his dog and have a conversation. Unfortunately, that was the end of these people, and they don't even know the exact amount of how many people he. I think all that comes into play right there. How do you feel about any of the things I just stated?
Oh my gosh. I think that you're 100% on point. Now, as a field researcher, we have some real dangers out in the woods. And the number one danger in my mind, not just number one, but we have a lot of threats. Okay. And it's wild animals out there. And something else that we really have to worry about are people, other
Yes.
humans that are out there. And we've had cases in some of the places that we go out and research where there have been let's just say like encampments of people who have decided to go off grid and have held people up at gunpoint and shot them in the woods on the
Yes.
forest roads where we actually, some of the places where we go do some research. Okay. In those areas, there's a lot of threats out there. That's why we never go alone. Okay. And I know there's a lot of people that like to go out into the national parks, national forests, state parks by themselves. I highly recommend that people don't go alone. Protect yourself. If you're out there, if you do go alone, or even if you've got your kids, I'm a mom and I have a kid. I have to worry about, him. I'm all fully aware of the David Politis Missing 411 series. We have clusters of missing people in some of the places where I go and where we research. Those maps that you were referring to, we've got the missing persons cluster map on top of the cave system, on top of the Bigfoot sighting map, on top of the UFO sighting maps and the Dogman sighting map. I mean, it all aligns and they all line up. There's a lot that we have to be careful about and we have to be aware of. So I always have my head on a swivel. I always have something to protect myself with when I'm out there because you just never know what you're going to stumble upon when you're out there in the woods.
Preach. That's 100% the truth because even if you're just going out there, not even expecting to research something, just in general, I mean, look how many times people are just mountain biking and unfortunately a mountain lion attacks them and they weren't out there looking for a cryptid or anything. They were just riding through Arizona. When you look at Northern California, it also ties into what you just said as well with people being held up. I've seen documentaries about cartels up there with some of the things that they're participating in growing up in those areas, and random people are looking for Sasquatch or hiking and they stumble into those areas and I assume they fall victim as well, and those would be some of the missing people. And that's why I try to, because I'm not a skeptic, but I skeptically approach things. A great example I give people is, and I advise anyone to check it out, is how Les Stroud approaches the Bigfoot topic is really how I approach this, okay? I know people have seen things. I, again, have never had any sort of paranormal encounter myself. I've never seen UFOs, ghosts, Dogman, anything. I'm looking at this from a historical aspect, a journalist aspect, and a scientific aspect, meaning I have reports from 290 BC all the way to what you just told me a second ago, to 3 days ago. People are seeing things, and you are having tracks, you're having encounters. So obviously something is occurring, yet not every person's story is true. As when I was talking to you earlier about one of the ones that was sent to me the other day, super important to make sure for myself to step back and really understand what it is I'm posting and what I'm talking about. For example, before someone joined us in the North American Dogman project, I documented his encounter. Actually, a good friend of mine, Harley Owens, on my YouTube. At that point in time, like I said, he wasn't part of the North American Dogman project. I'm posting what he showed me for his images in the video of what we're talking about. Someone in the comments likes to be trolly, which is do what you got to do, saying, where's the video for this? Is there video? And yeah, we have some video points, but we're still trying to figure some stuff out. And keep in mind at this point in time, again, Harley wasn't with us. So I'm not just posting things of his that haven't been okayed. And also, if he's not with us and we haven't verified something, we don't post it. Now that he's with us, though, things are verified. Yeah, we're working on things, but people don't seem to understand. That's not what I do. I don't just post things, okay? I don't just open an email and read what is presented to me and document that as verified. I send those to my regional directors who run the regions, who then reach out to these people. I send that to Jody Cook. This is how we document things. So I think people, if they want to see just these extravagant things all the time, that's cool. That's not what my thread is. I guess go watch your TikToks and your reaction channels, because I'm only going to present what it is that's documented and verified. And if we have stuff submitted to us that isn't verified yet, yes, I do have video. Is it verified? No. So things aren't being posted. That's just the way it rolls, correct?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm coming from a field researcher's standpoint, and I got to admit, I didn't even know about the Dogman when I first got into Bigfooting, because I've been in this for, I guess I started back in 2011 is when I first started going out and doing my Bigfoot field research. I'm on 3 different field research teams, and the head of one of my teams was actually the Regional 5 director of the North American Dogman Project. His name was Bob Wilson, and he just passed away recently. But he taught me all I know about Dogman, and he was one of the most dedicated boots on the ground field researchers that has ever walked the earth, I swear. And so, just a wonderful person, but very knowledgeable on Dogman. And he spent more time in the woods than just about anybody I know, and took reports from all over the South. Honestly, I mean, we're Region 5 is the southeastern section of the United States, and we're down here in Georgia. So he took plenty of reports. Some of the better known cases actually out of Georgia. Those are cases that he took the reports of that are on your website. But yeah, I mean, I'm an experiencer and a researcher. I've never experienced Dogman that I know of, but I have experienced a lot of other cryptids. But yeah, you can't just take stories you find online. My goodness, there's so many stories where, I mean, at this point, like I said, coming from a researcher's standpoint, and you're a researcher as well, there's a lot of stuff that's made up these days. I mean, I'm not ever going to call anybody out on that or whatever, but I do know that it's really easy just to make up stories and put them online, or get some chat. What is that called? Chat GPT or something. And so you
Yes.
just don't know. I'm the kind of person that likes to go out and investigate and get firsthand eyewitness accounts from people. And that even includes people that are, working at the departments. I have access to deputies and 911 dispatchers, and in my local areas. And whenever they get calls in that have to do with werewolves or spotting a dog man, they let me know. Okay, and so that's how we get some of our information. And if people are willing to talk, I'll listen.
I appreciate all that, because that's another reason why I try to interact and also collaborate with you. It's important. As you just said, people such as yourself are able to get out there more and gather this stuff, but then it's also super essential for myself as a journalist and an author to be able to document that as well and put that all into a database where we're able to ping that on maps and figure out what's going on. Just think how many times people who maybe aren't good with technology or in the past didn't even have access to it had encounters that were just told within their inner circles that just disappeared into the wind. In the database that we're building, we have reports from Linda Godfrey. We have reports from Jody. We have reports from other North American Dogman Project members. We have reports from BBR Investigations, our friend Lilith, Deborah Hatchwell. We have some reports that you have just said that I would dive into. This is what we try to do, is gather all this and put this in a place where it's easily accessible for people to understand and differentiate what's actually occurring and what's not occurring. Again, to everyone that is listening, I'm not just going to post things. Like Jessica was stating, it's super important to make sure that we're putting out proper information, because I really do wish all the crazy dogman and werewolf stories I've heard are true. Yes, a couple have been verified for as much as we know as being true. Yet the majority of those epic stories aren't the way it happens. The majority are quicker encounters, maybe standing on the side of the road, crossing the road, looking in the window, darting across the backyard. Oh, well, that's not interesting. Well, guess what? That's not the way it needs to be approached about interesting. Go listen to a creepy pasta. We need that information to document those areas, those specs. How did it move? What did it look like?
I 100% agree with that. And yeah, and a lot of the reports that we get, the Dogman reports are not violent. It is usually something seen on the side of the road, peeking out of the tree line, running across the road, or getting hit by a car. Okay, like those are the reports that I know of personally that I've been told, and those are just in my one county where I live alone. We've had multiple encounters. People have had multiple reports of people calling in to the 911 center where they have seen. We call it the dog. It's actually the werewolf of the northern part of the county. But a couple called in recently. And recently, by recently, I mean like in the past 3 or 4 years. Okay, they called in saying that they thought they had hit a dog or a wolf in the road, but then it got up and it ran off on two legs, and that was in the southern part of the county where I live, and that was on basically a mile from my house, actually, of all places. Um, but I wanted to address something else, if you don't mind, because you had mentioned something about, I don't know, in the beginning of this conversation tonight, you mentioned something about the dogmen, the cryptids being hunted down. It made me think of my team being out in the woods at a national park, actually, in a national park in a state down here in the South. It's an undisclosed location, and some of the guys and ladies were out there doing a weekend excursion, an expedition of cryptid hunting, cryptid research, and some guys came out of the woods, some men that were dressed in full SWAT team uniforms, came out of the woods with full gear on, with their guns, bulletproof vests, all that stuff. And my guys were like, "Hey, what are y'all doing out here?" And they looked at them and they said, "Well, we're doing the same thing y'all are doing." Okay, so I just wanted to make a note of that. Okay, because yeah, they would do full well that my team was there looking for Bigfoot and encrypted research out there. It's very interesting. There's a lot more going on out there. It actually gives a little credibility to some of the other stories you hear about. I've heard about the cryptid breeding programs and stuff like that. It's a thing, and I think that's something that we should note.
No, that is all nightmare fuel and super, super creepy right there. And I've also heard some interesting cases of people being out in the middle of the forest and coming across units of small, stacked up military people that are in unmarked vehicles, etc. Yeah, I am very assuring that the is aware of what's going on. And I tap on this reference a lot. Remember when War of the Worlds was first read in the radio? I can't remember the exact date, but everyone thought the Earth was being overtaken and they were jumping out of windows and just basically doing insane things. Well, it was just entertainment being read over the radio. Unfortunately, the majority of society and individuals are eggshell minded in regards of they just kind of like to be told what to do, work your 9 to 5 and go be with your family and just do what, well, life's supposed to be like. If was to just come out and admit, hey, there's a meteorite coming towards Earth that we can't stop. Have a good day. Oh, there's a enormous dog-like creature that roams around in the national parks, or a massive human ape-like creature. Everyone have a nice day. How are people going to react? They're obviously going to freak out and it's going to be chaos. I mean, sadly, you'd like to think the majority of people can handle themselves in chaotic situations, but they can't. And I'll give you another example. When I was down in Boston recently, there was one of the subway trains, the T, that got set on fire by mistake, some sort of electrical issue. Can't remember how many people were on there, but I think it was like 100 or so. 99 of them, if it was 100, all got off. Okay, fine. Everyone got off. Nice, no problems. One woman decided to jump into the harbor and she couldn't swim to the other side. So then they had to call 911 to come get her. Okay, why did everyone else get off very calmly and she just flipped? Another couple, a husband and wife and their child down in Massachusetts, got lost in a cornfield that was set up for entertainment during the October times and felt the need to call 911. You're in a cornfield that has been set up for entertainment. How many directions could you really possibly go? So what I'm trying to get at is that, unfortunately, you would like to think people could comprehend things like that, but I really don't think they can. Yeah, of course, the now has definitely dove into animal experimentation. Yeah, in the past, when you had the cynocephaly and such in the Greek times, I think that was actually a natural creature that did interact with Herodotus and Alexander the Great. But fast forward to the Manhattan Project, and when Stalin was trying to work on the ape army and Plum Island, and Dr. Lauren Donaldson and Dr. Barr with the project or the Klickitat ape cat. If they're doing those type of experimentations, of course, there's other known animal experimentations that we're not informed about. Anything we know, there's more that we don't know. It's like with technology, the brand new iPhone in my hand. Like, does anyone really think the doesn't have version of my phone 10 times better? Come on now.
You mentioned Plum Island and the Manhattan Project, and I have recently, over the past year, done Bigfoot and cryptid field research at Montauk, New York, which is right there at Plum Island, where Plum Island is. And also, that's on Long Island, by the way, at the very northern tip. And also, the Manhattan Project was actually done in East Tennessee at a place called Oak Ridge Labs, and that is still in use today. And it is said that they actually have a large hadron collider there. By the way, okay, and this does have connections to Dogman. And unspecified animal attacks, fatal unspecified animal attacks in East Tennessee over there. I've done research there. I have done plenty of research in Tennessee. They do have a high level of cryptid reports, including Dogmen there. But I do think that areas like that, like Plum Island, and who's to say they don't have some sort of hadron collider CERN thing going on there too. But in East Tennessee, where they did work on that Manhattan Project, it just said that they do have a hadron collider there, just like they have at CERN. And if you go to their website, if you look up Oak Ridge Labs in East Tennessee, they actually work hand in hand with like sister projects with CERN on a project called ALICE, ALICE. So look that up for everybody who's listening today. You guys do some research on that. It's pretty interesting, and it makes you wonder what the connection is to Dogman and all these cryptid reports and sightings that are in those areas.
100%. Yes, that is again straight up nightmare fuel and well spoken. I couldn't agree more because it is very prevalent information that we have had people trying to dive into, well, experimentational aspects that they probably really shouldn't, or that they think they should, but don't really end up coming out the way they want. Unfortunately, we are coming close to the end here, yet we will have Jessica back in the future. And don't worry, I do have another question for her, though, before we allow her to get back to what she needs to do. How do you feel about the whole Georgia werewolf girl? Because I know I've done my own research on that. And I know that you have also done some of your research on that. And I would really like to hear your input real quick before we do let you go.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I am here in Georgia. Emily Isabella Burke, or Burt, I think it's Burt, from I can remember. She is buried, I believe that's in Pike County, down in Middle Georgia, which is super super cool because I do some of my Bigfoot and cryptid and Dogman field research down in that area. It's an area we call the Troop Herd Corridor. Now, Troop and Herd are two different counties in Middle Georgia, and that is an area of such super high strangeness that it was coined the Troop Herd Corridor by a pretty well-known author who did research on alien abductions, amongst other things. That area has the most reported cluster, like the highest number, the highest level of alien abduction reports from anywhere. I'm going to say in the country, but I know it's definitely in the South. So, area of high strangeness. I do believe there's something odd going on with her. Now, is it lycanthropy? Maybe. She led an interesting life. Um, I believe that her mother, after her father passed away, her mother sent her to Europe to go to school, to go to boarding school. She and her sister, her other siblings, were kind of sent off to boarding school by her mom. And they said that when she came back to Georgia, she was a different person. And she was acting odd, and she was growing hair in places she shouldn't be growing hair. And, it could have been a case of just her being an awkward teenager. But the story and the information that goes with it, with her leaving at night and not remembering where she would go, when she came home, the farms, the neighbors all around the area, the people who own livestock, their livestock was getting unalived, and the blood was being drained from it, and then the hunting party went out looking for whatever was the livestock, and she was shot at, or whatever was jumping out at them. I think the story I heard was that her mother actually shot at something that lunged at her from the bushes one night when she was out. She had been with the hunting party because she actually suspected that Emily was a werewolf, and had gone to potentially, she was the one that was hurting all the animals at night. And so she shot at whatever that was. And when she got home, Emily was on the front porch with her hand basically blown to pieces. She had been shot. I find it very interesting. I do believe that, lycanthropy, werewolves are real. I 100% believe that. Her doctor actually told her mother when she went to go get her hand taken care of, he said that he thought that she suffered from lycanthropy. And it doesn't help that her aunt actually wrote on her tombstone. She has like an obelisk type tombstone, and it said something about she has finally transformed to her true form. Okay, like that. It's not exactly what it says, but it's something to do along those lines of she's now that she has passed on to the next world, she's finally in her true form. So it really makes you wonder, and it's a very odd case. But we call her the Georgia's werewolf.
That is, again, a terrifying case and well spoken right there. And yeah, no, she was definitely shot, and her mom did treat her. And I believe when you said she went to Europe, I think I read something that she might have gone to a Germanic school, which is interesting too, because obviously Europe in general has a ton of lycanthropy lore and werewolf type lore. And yeah, when she did come back, she was everything you stated. Yeah, just strange, and was treated for that wound. And also, we do have another gravestone. I don't know the exact location off top hand because it's in our archive, but the insignia on the bottom says taken by human-like wolves, something along the lines of that. So there are some really interesting type of insignias on some tombstones. Like, we will definitely have to dive into that some more and try to figure out what the heck that's all about as well.
And that would make for an excellent show. I've heard stories of other strange things written on tombstones like that too. So that would be something really cool to really dive deep into.
It's just a strange thing to Is it not a strange thing to just put on a gravestone? I mean, sure, someone could have been wanting to be artistic or creative. Just a strange way, I suppose, to word things, especially at that point in time when it is some of the older dates on there where using terminology like that wasn't really looked upon as okay, maybe more or less as taboo. We will definitely have to dive into that. I do appreciate you stopping by tonight. Like I had stated earlier, I know you're super busy, and it is always good to dive into the Dogman topic. I would love to have you back on soon and figure out some more of what's going on, and definitely put an end to the creepypasta type stuff and just really try to filter out what's not occurring. And things need to be debunked and things need to be verified. And I would love to continue to collaborate with you for sure.
Oh man, I'd love to come hang out with you anytime. Anytime, absolutely. And going back real quick to the tombstones and what's written on them, I mean, is a serious thing, and so for somebody to actually write something on somebody's tombstone, it takes a lot of thought. They're not just putting things on there that, like, well, our daughter was taken by wolfmen and things like that. I mean, that's pretty serious. That's like, that's said, literally set in stone. So it's something to think about. It's food for thought. And I think that's really cool. So, man, I would love to come back anytime. Just I'll be here.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. And again, what you just said is so true. I mean, you might have had occasionally the sick uncle or family member that got the chance to have the final writing on the tombstone, but let's be real, how many times is that going to have happened? Where someone could have put in the humor like that. And as you stated, it's definitely taboo. So, no, that will be something great to dive into. I will try to find those files and send them your way and just keep me posted. I would love to get you on weekly or at least every other week because I only go for like 30 minutes or so. And yeah, it'd be good to just continue what we're doing.
I'm game anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Let me know how your week looks and I will talk to you very soon.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, my friend.
All right. See ya.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And until next time, remember, there are things that go bump in the night.